Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to cover part 2 tonight of the important changes. We're going to just a quick recap. I'm going to go through the first 10, 15 slides fairly quickly, giving you a little bit of update, but I really want to spend the bulk of our time tonight going over how to handle the strategy around the buyer consultation. Some of you have sent me some great ideas, and there is more discussion that's being had on the MLS in terms of the SOC transparency change. And one of the brokers sent me a text, said, hey, the MLS explanation was really well done. So if you need more information, you can certainly watch the video that they posted on the MLS regarding the SOC change. But let's go ahead and dive in. There's 3 things that we covered last week where I'll quickly review L&I. Many of you have received a phone call from DJ or have received an email asking for updates on your credit card authorization. It is because of the new labor and industries change. And we are going to update our records and make sure that we're compliant with labor and industry law. So we'll go through that real quick. So a lot of the agents are just digging their head in the sand thinking this will go away, that these changes won't apply to them. In fact, I was in a meeting with other designated brokers from some smaller companies, not the big ones, who are pretty much burying their head in the sand, not caring about change and how that impacts them. At Best Choice Realty, we are taking it very seriously about what we need to be aware of and how the industry is changing around us, and we're giving you education along the way. One of the things that kind of struck us a chord with a lot of people was that the statement from Brian Buffini, you guys know that he's a coach, that unproductive real estate brokerages will be gone in the next 3 to 5 years. That's an interesting stat. I don't know if it will play out, but it certainly begs the question and a reason to kind of take pause at what's going on and how you're conducting your own personal business. This was a stat from a RE/MAX presentation that I attended. It was really well done. Kudos to RE/MAX Northwest for putting this on. With 5.6 million existing home sales a year, we don't need an estimated 2 million real estate agents. So again, the cream of the crop, which is really what we're focusing on, is managing and helping you guys that are with Best Choice to sell more real estate than your competitors out there. We certainly are making great strides. If some of you saw this number, this is the stats for the MLS in all of the areas that the MLS services, meaning we are number 9. This is something that we should really be proud of at this point in time. We are still a very new company, and yet we are in the top 10 of all real estate brokerages for the amount of transactions that we have closed year to date. This number is just a week old, but we've been hovering in the 9 or 10 spot for several weeks now. So not on volume, not on the price that we take in, but on the amount of units. So again, it focuses you that you need to be very aware of what we're dealing with here when it comes to commission, because as a company, we're focused on the units, but for you, it's going to be about how much money you bring in. And this is a very important topic for you. So we'll talk about how we can increase this number and get up into the top 5, but it's going to take all hands on deck to be able to get us to that level. The L&I changes in 2018, at the end of 2018, Labor and Industries made a change to the WAC code. The WAC code said they added this section, which was not in the WAC code up until that point. So this is from the WAC code 296. You guys don't check this, but unfortunately, there are lobbyists and other competitors that see how successful we are being at Best Choice Realty and added this special note in the 2018 at the very end. We are not going back in time to collect L&I from you guys in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and August. However, we are going to collect at the end of September for the first month, and we will be paying L&I for each individual agent as according to the RCW code. This is per our attorney that represents Best Choice Realty. So there is going to be a cost. Luckily, based on what other brokerages are doing, they're not classifying 40 hours per week. This would be worst case scenario. We will be calculating about 35 hours per week, which would be around $500 a year. So that would be your cost, but we will collect that every month from you, and so that we have your L&I coverage covered. If you are on the referral network, some of you are, 30 of you actually belong to the referral network where you're not productive every single month, and you probably work part-time or very, very little. At that, we're going to send you a notification every quarter. So you would be classified as part-time according to L&I labor laws. And so you may not have to pay the entire $500 roughly. You would be maybe looking at the annual cost of say $68 or $70 based on how many hours you are logging or tracking or disclosing to us, which we will ask you for that information every quarter. So anybody that's in the referral network, that will be an audit thing we have to do every quarter. For everybody else, we will be calculating on a monthly basis and then paying your L&I for you. And that is effective in September. So if you got a phone call from DJ or from David, one of our employees, that is what it's in regards to. And if you want to speak with me one-on-one about that, I'd be happy to take your phone call or text. We have been inundated with a lot of questions over the past week, and that is perfectly fine and completely normal to have questions about L&I, and I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. Not as many questions as I anticipated though, so if you do still have questions about that, shoot me an email or send me a text, and I'll be happy to follow up with you tomorrow. There is no profit for Best Choice Realty. In fact, we're probably going to lose money on the L&I, but that is the right thing to do. When agents leave the organization, or when they don't pay, or when we have to deal with labor, our employee labor, just to make sure that we track all of this and pay for it, it is a time suck. I can tell you that just for the last week we've been working with updating our records. So again, realize we're not making a profit. Some brokerages do. They charge a desk fee, or they charge some sort of annual fee, so that they're basically wrapping up that cost, and we're not going to do that. We're just charging you, again, the rates here for the, and our rate class, our risk class is actually the lowest that it possibly can be, because we are still a new brokerage doing this, and we're kind of at the clerical level with no claims. So if we had some L&I claims, our risk class would go up, and there are brokerages that have to charge more because they've had some claims or they've had risk. Certainly that's something to consider when we look at our annual cost. So it's low, and again, it will be around $500. So I got approval in the last 7 days to go ahead and adjust our hours that we calculate with L&I, so that you guys can save a little bit there. The next thing we'll talk about is the SOC changes. And I'm going to go through, most of you are aware or have not, if you haven't heard about it, then you may be asleep, or you may not be tracking the MLS. They've had it on their homepage for the last probably 30 days. So we're going to talk about the why a bit. There was a class action lawsuit. And so the debate is, are we anti-competitive? Are we not negotiable with our commissions? Are there non-deserving agents? Quite simply, the answer to these questions is yes. However, at Best Choice Realty and the Northwest MLS, we are taking a proactive approach and leading the nation in making sure and enforcing that we are not anti-competitive, that we are negotiable on commissions, and that our agents are deserving of the commission when they represent a buyer. So we'll go over some of the things tonight to help you guys, but there are articles you can read. I'll go ahead and post this on our closed group Facebook, and also send an email out to everyone with this entire presentation now that I've done it in person, so you can read it and click on the links. But there is lots of training and education, and a lot of speculation for the most part out there right now in terms of buyer agent commissions. The reason why we're doing it is to create transparency. We don't want to go back in time. We want to be forward thinking. And really, there should be an aspect of a buyer agency agreement that comes from all of this. So we're going to start to see, this is a Remax slide. Again, it's meant to throw you off, because this is basically what you could see on October 1st, is say you were on one website and you saw a commission rate of 3% on one house. Maybe another property you're going to show, I'm sorry about that, is showing a commission of $1,000 and another commission of $16,000. So there's going to be people and buyers that have questions regarding how you earn your keep, how you earn your commission. And so we're going to talk about that tonight, as how to explain this to your buyers. Here's a sample of what Redfin has already done. This is directly from Redfin's website last week, and they have their refund of $517 right now. Buy with a Redfin agent and we'll give you a percentage of our commission from the seller. Now, they haven't changed their model. They still have employee agents that work for Redfin. You guys are independent contractors and you run a business. And with this refund, you may be passed on to another negotiator or a negotiator, or somebody that handles the inspection, or somebody that different that opens the door and shows you the property. They have not changed that business practice. And so you are competing with somebody who may get disjointed service when working with an employee real estate broker, rather than working with an independent contractor who runs their own real estate business. So don't be afraid of these industry disruptors. The media really loves the disruptors. They get them a lot of press right now. And some of the things and the speculation that's on the blogs or from these companies may not be truly what the real estate profession is encountering. We really need to work hard to educate our buyers and focus on service, not technology. With all of these things go, the way they go and the way that they run their businesses, at the end of the day, there's still a need for agents like you who focus on service and consultation and negotiation and service, and not rely so heavily on their websites or their technology. Although I do think technology is important, you do need to understand how to use technology, but you shouldn't be leading with that. People are working with you because they like you, because they trust you, and because they know you're in the business and they trust that you can help them get the best deal. So this article by Harvard Business Review I thought was really well done. It talks about the disruption with the unhappy customers that are not technology, and you can read that at your own time. But you really need to articulate your value proposition. And this is kind of where we left off last week, which is articulating. People were taking pictures of this screen. I want to be perfectly clear. This is not set in stone. This is how commissions could be structured, not that they will be structured this way. Some of you were confused by this, and I apologize for creating the confusion. This was just, again, this is how commissions could be structured. This is an important word right here. That does not mean we could wake up on October 1st and not have any changes to how commissions are structured. We might still see the commissions at 2.5%, at 3%, at 1%, at maybe a flat fee, or we could see nothing at all. Again, could be structured this way. But there is going to be a need for you to establish agency. I do not disagree with our speculation on that. Buyer agrees that the real estate firm shall receive a selling office commission in the amount published to the MLS, but not less than 2.5% of the sales price. Should the seller of any property the buyer purchases refuse to pay the selling agent the commission specified above, buyer agrees to pay the difference between what the seller will pay and the commission specified above. This is somewhat of a statement that we have in our new buyer agency agreement that I'll unveil on October 1st, so that you can use that starting October 1st. There are some possible additions that we have considered, such as a retainer fee and other income that could be obtained for warranty security. There will be a section in our buyer agency agreement that puts the consumer on notice that sometimes we get these types of benefits, but that they're holding us harmless from some of those relationships. So we're going to have that also drafted into our buyer agency agreement. Currently, right now, a lot of you are just going out the door and just thinking, if a buyer says, I'm thinking about buying a house, you say, great, I'll set you up on a search and let's go tour houses this weekend. And that is a lot of the technology companies. They're focused on getting you out in cars with people. When really, as we're approaching this type of environment, we need to start thinking about how we have a consultation and how we do a presentation with our buyers before we go out and tour homes. Ultimately, we need to have a buyer agency agreement signed to protect your commission, because if you don't, you're going to wind up maybe losing a buyer or two that goes to another real estate firm that has better education or better consultation. that makes the buyer feel comfortable at with the process. There will be good agents, there will be better agents, and there will be best agents. And I love this slide, and we're probably going to incorporate that into a talking piece for all of you. But when I talk about good, better, and best, maybe the good agent is going to go out and show you homes, maybe for a flat fee. A better agent may negotiate for you terms that will be in your best interest and navigate difficulties when they arise. But the best agent will anticipate the pitfalls before they occur. They'll get you the best deal with the best terms and always have your best interests at mind. So with that, we'll lead right into the buyer presentation, which we have updated thanks to Kay Kramer, who edited like a third or fourth time for me to make sure that we covered as much as we possibly could for you guys. You can download it for free by going to our website, bestchoicerealtyhomes.com, and then you can go into our homepage. I maybe can just show you guys real quick here. It's not hard to do. While I'm doing that, you can download this for free on our website. You scroll on down to Forms, Buyer Presentation right here. And then there's a sample right here, and there's individual folders, or you can download it right here. If you'd like an assembled package where we put it together for you, that includes a pen and some other helpful tips with all the disclosures. And you guys know about the disclosures, the lead-based paint disclosure, the pamphlets that are required to give your buyer. Those can all be assembled and printed for you and available for you at our office in Tukwila, Linwood, or in Sumner, or in Tacoma. You just need to give us a heads up that you need one of those or how many you need, and we could even customize that for you or personalize it for you. But you would need to download, if you just need to have one, there it is right there with all of the information that you can use that is already been edited and vetted by our top brokers. So you have easy access to that. Along with that, you need to be very familiar, if you haven't spent the time to understand the mobile apps, you need to get yourself on a mobile app. We talked about it. We've done classes in the last 12 months. You must educate your buyers and get them in touch with the best mobile apps to aid in their home search. So if you are not on HomeSpotter or you're not on HomeSnap, you need to start using those types of apps. Other competitors are using other apps, and they're designing their own apps, which may or may not be what a client is used to using. HomeSnap is a great app because it's highly trafficked on the entire nation. HomeSnap has great ratings and is an awesome app that syndicates with the MLS. Because you're with Best Choice Realty, you get personal branding for free. We have that branding that you don't have to pay extra for. It puts your name and our logo attached to it. It's also very accurate, the most accurate you can get because it's coming directly from the MLS. It also has commute times, schools, property history, etc., and you can communicate directly with your client. So make mention of that, or go ahead and make a note that you really should get that done. So now the last part of the session tonight, and I will slow down. I know I talk really fast, but there's a lot of content to cover, is you need to start talking, before you even talk about houses, you need to determine with your client. Some of you do this on social media. Some of you have parties or client appreciation events, or you go out for a beer on a Friday night. Whatever that may be, whenever you're having that conversation, before you talk about houses, before you say, let's go look at that house on Main Street, you need to determine the client's goals. So if you want to take note, you can take these notes. These are my questions that I use when I meet with a client or I'm talking about properties. What do you really need from a house? You know, my brother is thinking about renting, for example, and we discussed the pros and cons just this last weekend about owning a condo or renting a condo. He's looking at both options right now, and he wants to keep traveling, and he may be relocated from his work, so it may make sense for him to continue and rent for maybe 6 months or 12 months. But we are talking about, what do they really want from a house? He likes the tax write-off because, you know, he's a CPA, so he does like that, but that's not what he needs from a house at this point in his life. He does want to travel. He wants to be able to relocate to a different state. So it may not be the best time. But if I went and showed him condos, I'd be wasting my time right now. So you really want to make sure you determine their goals. What do you like to do when you're at home? So when you are at your property, do you like to garden? You get to a feel for what they like to do. with home ownership? How long do you plan to live in your next house? What websites or applications are you using to shop for houses? And when is the last time you actually toured a home? Did you actually go to an open house or a private touring? Who did you go out looking at homes with? How handy are you? Do you need something that's move-in ready, or are you able to do cosmetic, or are you able to tackle some big projects? What is your skill set like? Those are the types of questions that will help you in determining the client's goals. The other thing you need to talk about their goals, then you also want to talk about their needs and their wants. So you want to talk about where they are in the loan process. The one that RE/MAX did, the presentation I attended, they were very weak. They asked a lot of closed-ended questions where you really, at this stage in the game with your buyer, you need to have a lot of open-ended questions, questions that do not require a yes or no answer. So a tell me, or what, or who, or how, those types of, that prefaces the questions with open-ended questions or open-ended statements will help you in getting to the answers that you need to help guide and direct them. So tell me where you are at the loan process. What options or loan programs are you interested in? Who is your trusted lender? What other options did your lender qualify you for? Where is your down payment coming from? All of these questions are great open-ended questions that you should ask even before you go out and look at homes. You could ask them on the phone. You could ask them in person when you meet with them. But they really should be questions you ask in your buyer consultation or when you're phone screening or talking with your buyer. The other things you want to do with your buyer before you even talk about houses is you want to explain the contract process slowly. So you want to explain the highlights of the buyer package, probably go through some of the key things in the buyer consultation I just showed you. Show them a sample PSA. If you want to put a big sample across the top of the purchase and sale agreement, I think that would be a great idea to include a copy that said big sample so they're not using your contract. But when we did this in Utah, where a buyer agency is required before you even go and tour homes with a buyer, that's what it's like in that state. We went ahead and created a buyer, like a sample buyer package, and we put sample in big red letters across the sample contract so that they at least could see it. So they weren't surprised when we got to the AuthentiSign or the DocuSign stage when we were at that point in the negotiation. So many of you, over 95% of you guys at Best Choice Realty use Transaction Desk, but I fear with this change that the buyers may be very, very sensitive at not wanting to sign your electronic paperwork if you have not done a good job at walking them through the process slowly. So it begs the question, are you going through the contract process with them so that if there's their first time or they haven't written a contract in many years, that they feel confident with your ability to explain the contract to them? Explain how the closing works, or explain earnest money. We have a page in our buyer consultation package that talks about the costs that are associated. This is a great opportunity for you to educate them on the contingencies, on the earnest money, or how you work with them to do inspections. So before you even go out and you really need to formalize that relationship. So I would lead with the buyer consultation package, and then I would consider in the buyer agency agreement. So you basically, in essence, would go over the buyer consultation. It's only 8 or 9 pages. You don't have to go through every page. You can highlight the key points, especially if you know the buyer and you know the questions that they have, or you're asking questions along the way. Then you can go ahead and create trust and transparency. And you can explain to them that the buyer agency contract can be terminated by either party, by us or by them. That makes them feel at ease before they sign. And then you are going to explain to them when you go over the buyer agency agreement how commissions work, why the seller pays, explain how commission is used, what resources we are given at Best Choice Realty, maybe explain the good, better, or best. But the statement below in the gray bar is probably the most important, and it's something that you guys may want to memorize or take to heart, because it really explains, in essence, what I think is important when educating a buyer on the buyer agency agreement. That the commission will be paid by the seller whenever possible. With all of the conversations that I've had with designated brokers, and I've spoken now with over 35 of them in either online chats, personal phone calls, meetings, or personal phone calls that I've had with these brokers. And these are from the major designated brokers that are in our area. And they do not expect a rapid amount of change when it comes to how a seller pays commission. But the commission will be still paid by the seller in our state whenever possible. But in the event we are unable to achieve that, this buyer agency agreement discloses how I will work exclusively for you and provide you with the highest level of service. So I love that one of our top producers, Cheryl McLaren, has already, she's already drafted something that she has, and I'll share that with you guys because I think it's really cool that she's taken the time to do that. And that will kind of give you guys a window into what I have. So we have this 200 steps to get your property sold for the listings. And what our graphic designer will go ahead and do is she'll go ahead and change this to probably 100 steps. And there is something that I think Cheryl McLaren did. Let me bring it over to my screen here so you can see it. She has created some talking points for when she explains. And I did ad-lib a little bit, Cheryl, so if you're on the call, I apologize, but this is basically my notes after reading your synthesizing your comments here. But she has buyer agency agreement talking points. Here's how I will work for you. You could show the 100 items that the best buyer agents will do. And then she can go over the agreement. The buyer agency agreement will allow me to work as your buyer's agent to do all of these things, and explains how compensation is earned. It is a contract with you and my brokerage firm. If you are unhappy with my service, you can contact my boss directly. She's going to include my information or my phone number in her dissertation. You can have my business cards. I have plenty of those if you want to use my business cards. Most people want to know how compensation is done based on the recent changes. Explain confidently what I just explained already. The buyer's agent compensation to Cheryl McLaren will be, and on that compensation line, she will write in 2.5%. In the event the MLS has a shared compensation higher than 2.5%, we will receive that compensation. Commission will be paid by the seller whenever possible. So all I did was take that and put that into her dialogue. And then she's got some questions or objections that she's going to need to be prepared to speak to. So she outlined these are possible scenarios or questions that a buyer may ask her. So what will happen? Is the buyer obligated to pay the difference in escrow? She'll need to be prepared to say yes based on this buyer agency agreement. But that would only be if we found the right home. So she's got some good some objections or questions. I think Cheryl would be okay with you guys also having this document because I'm going to take what she's got here. I've already started it, Cheryl, so I'm making it pretty for you and for everybody else that works for Best Choice. But these are the services provided and committed to by Cheryl McLaren, your broker. So in essence, I'm having our graphic designer take what she's got here for the sellers. This is available to you guys right now. If you go to our resource guide, you have this for sellers. We're just going to turn this into a buyer, the 100 things that we do to help them. And I can, trust me, I can add quite a few things that you guys do that even Cheryl probably doesn't know she does, but it makes it look really good so the buyer understands they're getting a lot of value for the best type of service from our Best Choice Realty agents. So I think you guys will find a lot of success will come from this type of effort that we've put a lot of time and effort into thinking through how to incorporate a buyer agency agreement into our dialogue. So she's got on here doing a market analysis. A lot of the things I have on my slide are also being covered by Cheryl. So let me go to the next slide here. So one of the things that she's going to do is she's going to provide a CMA on each home that the client is interested in. So that is a strategy that works. Now, if you're not the type of agent who will do that, you may want to have that removed from your dialogue or from your 100 things that you do. But we have access to Cloud CMA. You can use my Cloud CMA account. There's a Rapid CMA. If you have HomeSnap downloaded on your app, that's really easy to do a quick Rapid CMA on your own account. The client doesn't have access to do that. You do for the client. which is great. If you need to learn how to do that, the MLS has training on how to use that, that HomeSnap app. Develop rapport with the listing agent. I think that's huge. It's part of negotiation. We even practice that in our classes on how to develop rapport with the listing agent, what strategies we do, what questions we ask. I got to be honest with you, buyers don't like to do the negotiation on their own. I get almost sick to my stomach when I think about having to negotiate a car sale. And it's even more sickening to think that I have to do a negotiation for my own, purchase. So, they're willing to pay for service. That's certainly the question of the day. And if you develop rapport with the listing agent, that's part of negotiation, is that you're building trust and rapport. Most homes, still even with for sale by owners on the rise, we still do 95% on the MLS. There's still a way to get access to that data through our Northwest MLS. So as much as people think there will be a rise of people wanting to do this on their own with limited inventory, I don't think that is the case. That's not how real estate is done in the United States of America. There still is a listing agent and there's still a buyer's agent, and there is still commission earned based on service. We also would want to inform our current market conditions and what to expect. We are recently in the last month, we put together some stats that you can share, either infographics that you can share on your social media, or that you can incorporate into your listing presentation or your buyer presentations. But that is information that's very relevant to buyers who are deciding between maybe one city or another. We talked about that on a couple calls ago, and using some of those tools that we have at our disposal, that would be something you'd want to look into. And how do you incorporate that and get that into the buyer's hands? We want to advise on offer components and competitive strategies. Attend all inspections, bids, appraisals, walkthroughs, and signings, and utilize Best Choice Realty's vetted transaction coordinators. If you haven't taken advantage of our transaction coordinators, we do have some fantastic ones. They are as in-house as you can possibly get. Some of the people on the referral network are licensed with Best Choice Realty, but they are also working exclusively as a transaction coordinator for all of the Best Choice Realty agents. And many of our top producers use a transaction coordinator. Cheryl, on her little statement on her value proposition, she indicated how much she pays for a transaction coordinator, but it's actually worth more. I would say that a transaction coordinator, a good one, ones that we would vet, are, tell your clients it's anywhere from $400 to $500 for a good transaction coordinator that maps out the timelines, that helps in creating some of the documentation, that does the administrative work. I don't know if you know this, you guys, but some of the brokerages in our area actually pass that along to the consumer. When you see the closing statement, they actually have their client pay for the transaction coordinator, and they can do that in the state as long as it's documented on the closing statement. At Best Choice Realty, that's something that all of our buyers agents, our top producers, include when working with them. So make sure you enhance that in your discussion, especially when you're wanting to point out what you do that sets you apart. The more buyers that are aware of the industry and information, they are more likely to choose to work with you in the coming months. So if you're new to the business, it's okay, but everyone needs to spend some time on their unique value proposition. What differentiates you from the other brokers and from your competitors, and be open to having this conversation right now with your sellers. We had a situation just a couple days ago where one of the sellers misread the press release that was put out, and sellers thought that they actually didn't have to pay for title insurance. Somehow they got confused about the commission, and we had to get title involved in educating this particular seller about what they read, and it put an awkward position, put this listing agent in an awkward position. So if you are a listing agent, based on that incident, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and start incorporating a net sheet into your presentation when you're working with a seller, and just be very honest about how the commissions are structured, that we anticipate not many people wanting to pay buyer's agents less. We are going to have, based on negotiation, we're going to have buyer's agents that may want to negotiate for that, or they may not show your property if you don't offer to pay a buyer's agent commission. That is perfectly their right as an agent, whether they show the property or not with the commission that they're earning. So be open and transparent about discussing that with your sellers. In fact, go so much as to put a net sheet in front of them and to show them how you earn your commission and what you do and how it's broken down. I don't want a lot of sellers confused about how we earn our commission or title insurance or some of the other fees that they are responsible for paying when they've misread or they were misinformed by somebody that's less than educated out there. Our broker did an excellent job. He went ahead and advised them. Hopefully he was able to get their signature on the listing agreement. But I just want to make sure that you guys are also speaking to your sellers about this and not letting the buyer's agent having to step into a buyer agency agreement. We should be having those conversations with our sellers as well. So with that, I'll let you guys go. If you want to send me a quick note, I'll be happy to send you over the 100 steps so you can see what that looks like with it done with our graphic designer. I can promise to get that to you by the end of the week. Along with the buyer agency agreement, we'll be posting that on our resource guide. So if you want to go there, that's where we'll be posting a lot of these things as well. Have a great week, you guys. And if you have any questions about L&I, just shoot me a quick text or a quick note tonight, and I'll be happy to follow up with you tomorrow.